And I want to welcome Dr. Gary Moore. He graciously agreed to present to our group a year ago, and I am so glad that it is happening today. So thank you, Dr. Moore, and I'll hand it over to you.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you today. We're going to be talking about balancing life and work. So a question might be, what qualifies me to teach on this topic? Well, here at NC State, we have a course taught in my department called Priority Management, and I've been teaching it for over 20 years. And I know at least one or two people on the list of participants might have been in there. And then I've authored a monthly column in a magazine on time management, and companies actually pay me to come and talk about time management. And she was too young to die. And this is what everyone said at my wife's funeral, and it was true. And when you have someone close to you die, that sort of makes you rethink what is important in your life and make you think about your life-work balance. This is a picture of her on our honeymoon. Barbara was 54 years of age when she died, and she was a family and consumer science teacher, and her specialty was foods and nutrition. So it's sort of interesting that I'm talking with a group of people who specialize in that area. But even though she died young, we had no regrets. I was not ready for her to die. I did not want her to die, but you can't fight cancer sometimes. But we had had a full life. We had traveled extensively. In this slide, the top left's up in Canada. We used to do a lot of fishing in Canada. We've been to Niagara Falls in the top right, the bottom right, the Eiffel Towers. You know, we'd travel all over the country. We'd raised 2 children. They're on the right. They didn't give us any problems. We both had successful careers, but we played a lot. We spent many a weekend in our trailer at the beach. So why were there no regrets? Well, we had learned to balance our priorities early on in life. We had learned to live like we were dying. And that is an image of me and her in our younger days. If you could see me now, you'd see my hair is white. But at one time, it was not white. So today I'm going to provide you with 10 suggestions on how to balance life and work. And Emily's sort of monitoring the session, so if you have any questions or want to pose something, that's fine with me. The number one recommendation is to have some written goals for your life, and these should be based upon your governing values. Now, what I find to be interesting is many people just wander through life. They may spend more time planning a trip to the beach than they do planning their life. Oh, we got a few days. We're going to the beach. Should we go to Carolina Beach? No, should we go up to Nag's Head? Where should we go? Where should we stay? What are we going to do? Where are we going to eat? And they put a lot of detail into planning a trip to the beach, but they don't really put much thinking into planning their life. I know of some people who have a job. They get up in the morning, they go to their job, come home, eat dinner, sit down in front of the television and watch Survivor or Bachelor or who knows what, American Idol, go to bed, get up, and repeat the same thing every day. They are just wandering through life. There is an old saying that says, no fair wind blows for a ship that has no port of destination. So back in the days of sailing ships, You needed the wind to blow in the direction in which you wanted to go. And that was called a fair wind. But if you really don't know where you're going, it really doesn't matter which way the wind blows. It really doesn't matter what you do with your day if you have no goals. So we need goals in our life. Here's a couple of people out walking. Are we lost? I don't think so. We never knew where we were going in the first place. And sadly to say, that's the way many people go through life. So in order to manage your time and balance life and work, you need to have some clearly defined goals for your life. And they should be work-related, and they should also be personal. Now, this is not a revelation. You already know this. But the fact is, only 3% of the population have written goals. Research shows you're 200% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. Some years ago, a 16-year-old boy wrote down the following goals on a 3x5 index card. This 16-year-old boy said he wanted to help the nation become physically fit. He wanted to marry a politically active woman. He wanted to become the world's greatest bodybuilder, and he wanted to make movies. Do you have any idea who might have written these goals? I'm sure some of you figured that. Yeah, I see. Tammy says it was Arnold. And Tammy is correct. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, on those goals, he didn't write down anything about messing around with the maid, but he achieved his goals that he had written down. So the question I would have is, where are you going in life? What are your goals? Some years ago, my wife and I, we collaborated, we sat down, and for me, I wrote out 7 goals or values. And they're work-related, they're family-related, and they guide my daily activities. Every morning when I get up and plan my day, what am I going to do? I sort of review my goals and say, will doing this help me reach my goal? So here are my 7 goals based in somewhat rank order. And I have one word, which is basically, this is important, and then I have a sentence. So my first goal is to have a good family life. My second goal is a work-related goal. I want to be known as one of the top teachers in the profession. Number 3 is innovation. I like to be on the cutting edge. I like to do neat and innovative things. The 4th goal is scholarship. As a university professor, I am expected to do research and writing, so that is a goal. Then there is a spiritual goal, a financial goal, and a fitness goal. Now, I'm glad you can't actually see me, because you'll see that I haven't quite attained goal number 7. But we're still working on that. So what I've done for each goal, I've written down a few sentences to clarify what that means. My first goal under having a good family life was that Barbara and I have a date once a week. A problem a lot of people have when they get married is they stop dating. Well, every Friday night during our 30-year marriage, Barbara and I would go out on the weekend. Then I would spend at least 30 minutes a day with the children in unplanned activities. Now, this is not soccer practice. This is not homework. We would just hang out and do fun things. And then once a month, we did something special, like go to the zoo, go to the circus. So we were always looking for something special to do as a family. We kept a trailer at Emerald Isle. We spent many weekends there. And we took a vacation every year. We think that's important. I know some people who do work for Extension who brag they never take a vacation. Well, that's not something to brag about. So those were the personal goal. Here on the screen is a scholarship goal. I'm not going to read all that stuff to you, but I have work-related goals. I have personal goals. Then I also have a mission statement. You know, what am I all about? Many businesses and many corporations have a mission statement. Well, my mission statement is I make a positive difference in the lives of individuals in agricultural and extension education by teaching, conducting research, and serving the profession while maintaining a strong family life. So you might want to think about, what is your mission in life? What are you trying to accomplish? So my first challenge to you is to block out 2 or 3 hours and actually do this. Write down your governing values, what's important in your life, and write down goals for your life based upon those values. And they should be personal goals and professional goals. We do not achieve life-work balance automatically. It just doesn't happen. We have to work at it. And I would consider writing a personal mission statement for you, then carry these around. So let's go to the second recommendation I would have for you today, and that's to use a time management tool. So I'd like you to think about, what type of time management tool do you use? And here are some different approaches I've seen to time management. Write down notes on a napkin. Have you ever done that? Or write down notes on your hand. I am amazed at how many students here at NC State write reminders and notes on their hand. Then we can use floating pieces of paper. We write notes on business cards, index cards, back of receipts, anything we can get our hands on. And some people use the Post-it note time management tool. So we have Post-it notes all over our office or where we work. And then the guy scratching his head, we have some people who say it's all up here. I have perfect recall and memory, so everything I need to do I can remember. So I don't really need a time management tool. We had an intern last summer who went out and worked in an extension office out west, and I did a little seminar for them, and he said, that's all up here. I don't need anything. So at the end of the summer, I said, how did that work? And he said, well, it didn't work too good. So we need some type of tool to help us manage our time. And I would call it a real-time management system. And the Post-it notes are not a real-time management system. Now, would you try to put a screw into a piece of wood using a hammer? Nope, that's not the proper tool. And then you see this guy sawing a board, sitting on a bucket. And we know that's not the proper way to saw wood. So we need proper tools. And since I teach at NC State and we train engineers, you know, here's the way a guy tried to attach a muffler. And that's not a proper tool to attach a muffler. So let me just share what I use. But I will acknowledge that a notepad, a piece of paper, would work just well. I use a Franklin Day Planner, and it has 2 pages a day. And I also use a smartphone. And let's talk about that for just a moment. Some people think they want to go all digital. You know, I've got a smartphone. You know, some years ago we had Blackberries, we had Palm Pilots. And for years and years, I've used a paper and pencil device. But when some of these digital devices came out, I jumped on those. Man, this will be great and wonderful. Well, I'd use them for a month, and then I would go back to the paper and pencil. And on 3 different occasions, I've tried them for a month. And what's the problem with them? Well, sometimes they run out of charge, and they're not available. Sometimes they will crash and you'll lose everything. The picture that's showing on your screen, we have here in Raleigh in our News and Observer newspaper, a guy who writes on technology. And he's the one that wrote this recently that said, you know, we still need paper and pencil. So A lot of times when I'm in a meeting, I want to take notes, and if I have a digital device out and I'm typing on it, people will think I'm checking email and not paying attention. If I'm writing on paper and pencil, then they'll think I'm taking notes. So the reason I use the Franklin Covey planner, and there are a lot of planners out there that do the same thing, but in the Franklin Covey planner, on the left-hand side, we have a place to list our tasks. Here's what I need to do today. Then there's a column to prioritize them, and then there's a column where we can check them off when we're done. There's another column where you can record appointments in the center, and in the right-hand column, or the right-hand page, you can record important information, conversations, promises, jokes you've heard, commitments, addresses. So I wrote down the address for this event today, and the details on the right-hand page. I would have them handy. I did a workshop in Duplin County on Tuesday, and I had all the information written on the right-hand side of the page I need. In my line of work, I have a lot of people come into my office. I have students drop by. I have people call me, and I'm always writing notes on the right-hand side of the page. Now, if I were trying to talk on the telephone to somebody and type all this information in some type of digital device, it just wouldn't work very well. Here's an image of a different type of planner. This is a very inexpensive planner that has a month at a glance feature, and the Franklin Day Planner has the same thing. So you can write down appointments, deadlines, meetings on the month at a glance, and then on the next section they have a week at a glance. So you can write down during a specific day what all you need to do. Then on the right-hand side, there's times. And this is a device that high school students use, so that's why the time starts at 3 o'clock. So before then, they're in school and don't have much control over the time. But there are simple time management tools like this out there. So we need a tool. We just can't remember everything, and floating pieces of paper don't work. My third suggestion or recommendation is spend time in daily planning and prioritizing. You need to be in charge of the day. You don't want it to be in charge of you. I know of people who go into their work, the phone rings, they talk about whatever they need to talk about on the phone, then a colleague drops by and they visit, and then your supervisor comes by and talks, the phone rings again, and the first thing you know, it's time for lunch, and you haven't got a thing done. So we need to figure out how to be in charge of our day. What I like to do is spend about 5 minutes every morning planning my day. As I eat my breakfast, I have my planner tool out on the table, and I'm making a list of things I need to get done today. Now, I like to do it in the morning. Some people like to do it at the end of the day for the next day. It's really up to you. But we do need to spend time planning. Research shows that for every minute we spend planning, we will save 7 minutes in execution of the plan. And so I'm sure some of you have seen this, where you'll, I think I'll go make some cornbread. And so you'll go in the kitchen and start working on it, and you don't do any planning, and then you realize, I'm missing eggs. So then you got to go to the store and get eggs. And if you'd spent a little time planning, you wouldn't have all these problems. Some people say they don't have time to plan. Well, you really don't have time not to plan. It's very important. And when I do my planning, I sort of think about my long-range goals, my governing values, and see if I can do something today related to those other than just the day-to-day activity. Then, after you list the tasks that you want to accomplish during the day, then you prioritize them. So for every task, you write an A, a B, or a C beside that. And these tasks, I use a Franklin Day Planner. You can use some type of weekly planner. You can use a notepad. It doesn't matter, but you need to have a tool, and then you prioritize them. An A means it's very, very important. I really need to get this done today. A B is this is of moderate importance, and hopefully we'll get it done today. A C means, well, if I get to it, that's fine. If I don't, there's always another day. And then after you have everything classified as an A, B, or C, then you go back and number them. So all the A's, you have an A1, an A2, an A3, and A4. Then you start on A1. What happens if you don't prioritize this task list? It's been my experience, if you don't prioritize a task list, you look down through the list of things you need to do and you pick something that you enjoy, or you pick something that's easy, or you pick something that's quick and you do it. Then you check it off and you feel real good. Oh man, I'm getting a lot done. And then you do another one of those simple tasks. Then you do another simple task and you're feeling really good. Boy, you are just burning things up. But the problem is you haven't worked on the important thing, the thing that's really crucial that needs to be done, because it takes some work and effort, and all these other things are a lot quicker to do. So that's why we prioritize. Then after we prioritize and work on our list, there are 5 symbols that we need to use. And we can use these symbols with a fancy planning system or on a notepad. When a task is completed, we check it off with a check mark. We don't draw a line through the task. That way, the reason we don't draw a line is we don't know if we have accomplished it or canceled it. So a check mark means we've accomplished it. When you have a list of things done at the end of the day that you have not got done, you need to, on a future date, list the tasks that were not done and then draw an arrow on today's task to show that it has been forwarded to a future date. Otherwise, things will fall through the crack. A dot beside an item means it is in progress. You have a task to do, so you call somebody because you need information from them. They're not in, you leave a message. So you put a dot to know that that task is in progress. At the end of the day, you make that a check or you draw a line. Then sometimes we have people we can delegate tasks to. We often have a lot of volunteers, so we put the person's initial beside the task. When I'm doing my daily planning, I'll say, you know, I have an administrative assistant I can ask to do this. Her name is Meg, so I will put her initial out beside the task. And then when I get to the office and talk with Meg about the task, then I will put a circle around her name so that I will know that I have had a conversation with her. And then if there's a task we decide not to do, we just put an X beside of it. Say, I'm not going to do it. And in my planner, I will see a task that I may have written down, and I may forward it 2 or 3 or 4 days where I've not accomplished it. And then I finally decide, hey, I'm not going to do this, so I draw an X. Would anybody like to guess what item on our daily task list that we tend to not accomplish or X out? I'll give you a moment to think. Well, somebody said family. Well, that often happens. We want to do things with family. It's been my experience we X out exercise. Yeah, somebody wrote physical activity. So, no, that's what we tend to say. Oh, I'm not going to get that done. So we need to use these symbols. If we prioritize our daily task list, use these symbols, nothing should fall through the cracks. And you'll accomplish more and feel good about yourself. Our research shows that most people experience about a 23% increase in productivity by using a time management tool along with these symbols and do daily planning. And what we want you to do with the time you gain is not do more work, but spend more time with your family. So let's talk about family. Often we schedule time for others. We schedule time for work. We don't really schedule time for family. In the United States, 86% of males and 67% of females work more than 40 hours a week. And if you're a female and you work 40 hours a week, the research shows that you then spend 23 hours a week at home doing household tasks. So you're working the same amount of time as the males. Males only work 9 hours at home. Females work 23 hours at home. So there's a little disparity there. And because of budget cuts and downsizing in many of our organizations, we're working more and more hours. If we look at our planners that we use, we find that 95% of all the entries are work-related. Only 5% are non-work related. So this tells us sometimes we may not have our priorities in balance. If you go back over time and look at my planner entries, and I keep the past years on a shelf, so I can go back and tell you what I did in 1991 or 1988 or 2004. But you will see entries such as meet with Micah, meet with Carolyn, meet with Barbara. Those are my children and wife. And so I actually schedule meetings with them. So when somebody calls and says, hey, can I see you at 1:30? I'm sorry, I have a meeting. You just don't have to tell them with who you are meeting. This is a video I would like to show you. However, whenever you upload materials into Blackboard Collaborate, the links really don't work well. This PowerPoint is going to be posted for you to have access to. I would strongly encourage you to go to the URL, open up this poem, and it's about if I had to do it over again, and it's about raising your family. You know, if I had to do it over again, I would work more at playing and work less at working. I would spend more time with my children. It's really an inspirational poem, and it's put to video with images. So I would encourage you to look at that on your own. A fifth suggestion I would have is to establish family traditions. If we're trying to balance our life and our work, our children will remember the family traditions. One of the traditions in my family, since my wife was a family and consumer science teacher, is we would make sugar cookies at Christmas and then we would decorate them. And we would do that every year. My children are now in their 30s. But when they come home, what do they want to do? They want to decorate sugar cookies because they associate that with their childhood. And in our house, we celebrate Mardi Gras. Before I came to North Carolina State University, I taught at LSU, Louisiana State University, and that's the big state for Mardi Gras. And there is a food item in the picture. Does anybody know what type of food item that is? Somebody, Carol said that's a king cake, and that is exactly correct. That is a king cake. You see a little baby sitting on it. But when you make a king cake, the baby goes inside of it. Nobody knows where it is. And as you cut the king cake, If you get the slice of cake with the baby in it, then you have to bring the next king cake to the office. And so we grew up with king cakes and Mardi Gras beads. And when my wife passed away, it was about a month before Mardi Gras. And my son was a junior in college, and he was very, very stoic about his mother's death, but I could tell he was hurting. And to sort of make him feel better and pep him up, I had a king cake delivered to his dorm, and that just sort of helped him out. And at our house, we have lighted window decorations we put up year-round. I live in Cary, North Carolina, and if you don't know what Cary is an acronym for, it's Containment Area for Relocated Yankees. And in our neighborhood, it's sort of a nice upscale neighborhood. A lot of people like to put candles in their windows, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, we go all out and put up Christmas wreaths in the windows that are lighted and Easter eggs that are lighted. And right now, if you go to my house in Cary, you'll find lighted pumpkins in all the windows. And that was a family tradition we did. And every year we do a Christmas puzzle. And the one rule is it must have snow in the puzzle. I have 30 years of Christmas puzzles that we have done. And that's a family tradition. And then we read to the children every night. And that was a family tradition. So, you may have a lot of pressure at work. It's hard to have balance. Well, if you establish some family traditions, that help. This is an image I really, really love. Now, here are some people probably from Southeast Asia. No, they look like they're pretty happy. I would guess they don't have a whole lot of money, but this father is spending time with his children. And you don't have to have money to spend time with your children. Now, I have some grandsons, and the way this picture, you can't really see it because of the way this slide originally had a build where one picture would show and one picture would show. The slide you can't see on the left. The picture is a picture of me going fishing with my grandkids. Whenever they come to visit, we go fishing. The picture you can't see in the very center top is out in my garage. I have a garage, and when the grandkids come to visit, we hammer, we nail, we drive screws into boards, and they just eat that up. And then you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I have a fire pit in my backyard. And when they come to visit, I set newspaper on fire, and then they have these 98-cent things from Walmart that squirts water, and they play like they're firemen, and they put it out. And then as soon as they put it out, what do they want to do next? Oh, let's do that again. So I'll set some more paper on fire, and they'll put it out. And we can spend hours fishing, hammering, and putting out fires. Now, my wife is married to a guy who has divorced parents. So when they go see their grandmother, she showers them with expensive stuff. And in this picture, what type of outfits are those two boys wearing? Well, in case you don't know, those are insect collecting outfits. Everybody knows to collect insects, you need a safari hat. You need an insect collecting vest that has all these different pockets in them. No, you need binoculars. I'm not sure why you need binoculars to go find insects, but they have binoculars. And then each one has this super duper vacuum gun. So if there's an ant crawling along, you can vacuum up that ant into the vacuum gun. Now, and how long did those two boys play with that stuff? Well, 20 or 30 minutes, and that was it. And so No, the secret's to spend time with the kids, not money. And here's another video that we aren't going to be able to see that I would encourage you to see. It will make you tear up. It's about an old man who goes to the attic, and he's looking for a picture of his wife who is deceased. But as he rummages through the attic and looks in these boxes, he finds a diary that his son kept. And he did not know his son kept a diary. And so he wondered why his wife kept all that old stuff. But he took his son's diary and was looking through it. And then he decided to go downstairs with the diary because he also kept a work journal. And he wanted to compare what the son wrote and what he wrote. And on a specific date in his diary, this old man said he had wasted the day. He went fishing with Jimmy and didn't catch a thing. And what did Jimmy's diary say? Jimmy's diary said, the best day of my life. I went fishing with my dad. So that's a pretty good video to watch. Number 6 suggestion I would have for you is to organize your space at work and at home. Now, I hope your office doesn't look like this. But we are more productive and we feel better about ourselves and our life appears to be in more balance if we do some decluttering. And there's a lady named Barbara Hemphill who's a specialist in this area, and she says clutter is nothing more than postponed decisions. Now, you have some clothing that doesn't exactly fit, but you don't want to throw it away, but you don't know if you're going to lose weight. You don't know what to do with it, so you just sort of stick it in a closet, in a drawer, and it just sort of builds up. We get paper, we get memos, we get emails, and we don't know what to do with them, and they just pile up. The University of Maryland, some years ago, did a study of how people spend their time. And they followed a bunch of people around, recorded what they do, then extrapolated that to a person's lifetime. And they say that the average person will spend 8 months of their lifetime searching for misplaced items. So where's all those misplaced items? They're in the clutter. Now, your keys are under this. Now, here's this receipt. It's under something else. And so we don't want to spend 8 months of our life searching for misplaced items. There's several things wrong with clutter. One is we can misplace important items. Where is that receipt? Now, I need to return this to the store. Now, where did I put that receipt? It's someplace in this pile of stuff. Another problem with clutter is if our desk that we work from is cluttered, we don't have any room to spread out our work. So we may not do it. And then as we look through the clutter for items we need, we may come across something we've forgotten about. Something else may catch our attention. I was talking to my daughter earlier this week on the telephone, and she had gone through and cleaned out her bedroom. And she'd emptied all the drawers. She was getting rid of all the clutter. And she made some discoveries. She found some clothes that she really liked that she had forgotten about. So let's try to fight clutter. Some of the things that I do to fight clutter, I have a desk drawer as an end basket. So when my secretary brings me items, I just pull out the drawer and she puts them in there so they're not on the top of my desk. And then when I need to look through them, there they are. So this helps. And we need to schedule time to handle paperwork. So filing and handling paperwork is something we say, well, when I have time, I will get to it. Well, we really don't have time to get to it because we're busy. So we need to actually schedule in our planners an appointment with our desk. So you might want to call your desk Mr. Walnut or Miss Cherry or whatever it's made out of. but we do need to schedule time just to do paperwork. There's an old adage, if in doubt, throw it out. And this works for food in the refrigerator. It also works for stuff in our life that clutters it. I do a lot of work with agriculture teachers, and it's amazing how many little tiny pieces of wood they keep, how many little tiny pieces of metal they keep, because they might need it someday, and all they do is have a junky shop. There is a saying, when things aren't adding up in your life, start subtracting. And that is true. One summer, I was asked to teach summer school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And this is when my kids were like 10 and 12 years of age. And so my wife and the two kids and I went to Wisconsin with our 24-foot-long travel trailer. We lived out of that travel trailer for 2 months. And during that 2 months, we discovered there's a lot of stuff in our house that we really can live without. And so that was a revelation. We can live very simply if we want to. Number 7 suggestion, and you might find this to be a little strange. Fight perfection, both at work and at home. I know some people who spend hours trying to make something just perfect. The image on the left shows this lady having a dinner party, so she wants to make sure each candle is the exact same height. Now, do you think the guests are really going to determine that? No, and the guy on the right is making sure his lawn is just perfect. You may not know this, but perfectionism is officially classified as a mental disorder. And the reason I'm talking about fighting perfectionism is many people spend untold hours trying to achieve perfection. You're doing a program for a group of people. You're putting together a PowerPoint, and you want to illustrate it with certain images. So you spend an hour and a half just looking for the perfect image. And the reality is, well, this image is good enough. No, I don't need to spend an hour and a half looking for the perfect image, because it really doesn't make that much difference to the people. And I've seen people who've written papers, written reports, and they'll spend inordinate amounts of time just trying to make it perfect. When the computer came out, we said, oh, this will be a great time saver. But the problem is now, oh, well, we'll monkey with the fonts, we'll monkey with the margins, we'll just do all types of things. And then we have Google, let me go out and see if I can find one more source or one more reference. And so we're spending way too much time on perfectionism. Psychologists tell us that perfectionists are less likely to take risks and try their hand at new things. And they often become fearful of failure, and if they cannot be the best, they would rather not try at all. So if you have a passion for perfectionism, you may not want to try something new because you may not be perfect at it. Perfectionists spend inordinate amounts of time completing tasks, and other people tend to avoid the perfectionist. I have students who are perfectionists. They drive me up the wall. Now, in our opening paragraph, how many sentences should we have? What font do you want? Do we need a double space, single space, space and a half? They want to know every minute detail. My concern, did you get the idea? Can you explain it? I don't really care if you use Time News Roman or Arial or whatever you use. No, so focus on the job. And the next slide has an interesting story. If you look at the sale of cleaning products like Bonami and Ajax and Lysol, those products have been declining in sales, but the area that has grown is items that mask smells. If you go into a store today they will nearly have a whole row of aroma things and candles that you plug in your wall outlet to smell good, Febreze. So I guess we are trying to get away from being perfectionist in our house cleaning. I know a lady who washed sheets every day. When I first got married, my wife ironed my handkerchiefs. So I said, Barbara, why are you ironing my handkerchiefs? I said, no one ever sees them. And she says, well, my mother ironed my dad's handkerchiefs. So back in the days of the older fabrics, I guess stuff would get wrinkled and you'd iron stuff. But, you know, let's say, oh, no, this is good enough. It works. My house is not spotless, but it's neat and tidy and healthy. But I don't go overboard on cleaning my house. During my college days, I worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Soil Conservation Service, and we would go out and design farm ponds and terraces and other things, and we had a saying, this is good enough for government work. So what we designed was good, but we didn't go way overboard. Well, let's go to the number 8 recommendation. And the number 8 recommendation is to get exercise. And since we've pulled this presentation in to collaborate, normally it would build. There would be this one image that says, what's your excuse for not exercising? Then it would go away. And the text behind it says, we often put our own selves at the bottom of our to-do list. We put everybody else at the top of the list. We put our work at the top of the list, but we don't put ourselves at the top of the list. So we really need to put ourselves on our to-do list and prioritize that. We need to get exercise. We need to get a good night's sleep. No, we need to eat properly, but that's stuff that you know all about. So I want to talk about that more. A 1-hour workout is 4% of your day. And what you can't see on the screen is the doctor talking to the patient. And he says, what fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? I'm not going to go into detail on each one of these. Each one is based upon research, but exercises helps heart diseases, burns calories, helps you recover from stress, increases your physical stamina, so when something important comes up, you can be ready for that. It helps your blood pressure, reduces depression, reduces osteoporosis, reduces cancer risk, enhances self-esteem, increases your lifespan, reduces absenteeism from work, reduces health care costs, and also makes you better at performing mental tasks. So if you have time for Facebook, you have time to exercise. So it is time to exercise. Every accomplishment starts with a decision to try, and we could just start small and work our way up. Number 9 suggestion is to learn to say no. And when you work for Extension, this is very hard to do. We want to help people. And but there are times when we have to say no. We can't do everything for everybody. Often we spend a lot more time with other people's children than we do with our own children. So we need to learn to say no. I have a colleague recently who we needed somebody to go do something, and she just said, no, I got to do something with my daughter, and I expected that. So how do you go about saying no politely? What are the steps in saying no? Well, step number 1 is to affirm the relationship with the person asking you. Well, it really is good to hear from you. I haven't seen you in a while. No, our friendship's important. Then thank the person sincerely for the opportunity. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm honored that you thought of me. No, it's great that you think I can do this. And then say no. And here's several ways to say no. One is you can say, I need to pass on this at the moment. I can't commit to this as I have other priorities at the moment. Now's not a good time as I'm in the middle of something. Let me think about it first and I'll get back to you. I'm not the best person to help on this. Why don't you try Mr. or Ms. X? Or you could just say, no, I can't. The one that I use the most is, I'm not the best person to help on this. Why don't you try so-and-so and so-and-so? So I'm always referring people to somebody else. And typically it's because I honestly believe they can do a better job. But sometimes I just don't really want to do it. So we need to learn to say no. And number 10 suggestion is live like you're dying. You may have heard the song, I think it's by Tim McGraw. This is a video of the song that Live Like You're Dying. He got news that he had some disease and he had a short time, so then he went out and rode a bull named Fu Manchu, and he went skydiving, and he did other things. And we really need to live like we are dying. There's one word we need to eliminate from our vocabulary that ties in with live like you're dying, and that word is someday. Someday is basically a code word for never. Now, someday I'm going to learn to play the piano. Now, someday I'm going to take a cruise on an ocean liner. Now, someday I'm going to go to Europe. Someday I'm going to do this. Well, basically, there are 7 days in a week, and someday isn't one of them. If my wife and I had postponed doing all these things that we wanted to do until we retired, then they would have never happened. So I do have peace of mind. This is a painting that hangs over my fireplace. It's called The Moon Watchers, and it sort of makes me think of if my wife was still alive, this might be us looking out over this serenic scene, but she is not there. But as I mentioned earlier, we have no regrets because we had learned early on in our life to balance our priorities. Because she was a teacher, I was a teacher, we had a lot on our plate, but we had learned to have some goals, spend time with family, spend time working. So, in conclusion, I would suggest that achieving balance between work and life does not happen by chance. You actually have to work at it. And you don't want to put off those important dreams and goals till you have time, because you may not have the time. I know from my own life. And if you want to delve into this more deeply, there is a book that I call a classic. It's written by a guy named Alan Lakin. It's in paperback. You can go to nearly any used bookstore and pick it up for a couple of dollars. It's called How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life. When I was in high school, my older brother gave me a copy of this book. And some of the things that I've shared with you today are mentioned in that book. Not everything is, but many are. And so this is a good recommended reading. And there are 2 other books that he gave me. One is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And that was a good book because it made me think and have some goals in life. And the third book that he gave me was how to win friends and influence people. And so, in addition to getting a college education and all that type of stuff, I got more of an education probably from these 3 books. So I will stop at this point in time and entertain any questions that you might have. One of the questions says, I agree on not postponing, so how do we do that when there's no money for vacations? Now, I would love to travel. Well, one of the great things about living here in North Carolina, we have the ocean, we have the mountains, we have a lot of places in between. So while you're waiting to hit it on the lottery, we can go to a lot of places here in North Carolina that are really great. And I've often tried to combine some of my business travel with personal travel. When I travel now to go someplace, do a presentation, I'll try to add an extra day or 2 on. But no, money is a factor. So there's really no magic solution for that. But the critical thing is spending time with others. So while it would be nice to be in Yellowstone Park, we'll just have to go to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
I see a few more people typing. Please, you're welcome to turn on your microphone. You can type comments, questions.
One of the questions I see is, how do I balance my life when I have a 10-year-old and my mom who is 68? Perhaps there's somebody out there who could answer that question, since I don't have that situation. But I'm sure there's somebody that is working on something similar. I can tell you, when my wife had the cancer, she fought it for about 18 months. And I had 2 children, and I was just barely keeping my head above water during that time. And work took a back seat, and I spent a lot more time with family. I went with my wife to every chemo, every radiation, and she became a priority at that point in time. And somebody said they needed a vacation to organize my house. I have actually taken time off from work. I've actually taken time from vacation to organize. I used to live in a house that had a basement, and when I came to North Carolina, I don't have a basement, so a lot of stuff went up into the attic. And then as I needed to try to find stuff, I would rummage through the attic, find what I needed, and leave. And finally, my attic got in such a mess that I actually took a week of work, and my vacation was going through the attic, getting things organized. So sometimes we sort of got to call time out, get our stuff in order, and then get back to work. Now, like Suzanne's suggestion, take one day, Saturday or Sunday, every other week, and tackle one project at a time. After my wife died, a close friend of hers gave me a New Year's resolution, and I was supposed to follow it for a year. And that New Year's resolution was seek pleasure, fun, and adventure. And she tapped it out on a nice photograph of me and framed it and gave it to me and said, this is what you're supposed to do this year, seek pleasure, fun, and an adventure. So I did, and it worked. So then next year I made a recommendation for myself, and every year I have a goal or mission for the year. And this year, it's take one extra hour. And so what I do every day, I try to spend 1 hour working on something I would not normally work on, like cleaning out one drawer, or spending an hour working in the garage, reorganizing a cabinet, or going through one drawer of my desk. And I just found that doing 1 hour a day really adds up over the year. Many of you have heard of Piaget. Now, he is a famous child development person, and he was a prolific writer. And somebody asked him once, how do you get so much done in writing? He said every morning he writes 4 pages. And after he writes 4 pages, he quits for the day. Then he goes out and talks to people and do things and leads his life, but he writes 4 hours a day. And then if you get thinking about it, in a year's time, that's 1,400 pages. So basically he uses what we call the salami technique, where he takes a big job and slices it into small pieces and then does a small piece at a time. Then Lethea says, how do you stop being too organized? Well, I don't know if you really can be too organized. Everything has to be in its place. Everything has a place, and I want it there, so how do I change? Well, after you get that everything organized, then I wouldn't change. My wife was a fanatic about a place for everything. And one of the reasons houses get cluttered is there's no place for everything. So we had hooks for every coat of the children. I have a trash can beside the entrance door, so when I return from the mailbox, I throw all the junk mail into it immediately. But there's nothing wrong with having a place for everything. And one of the things my wife and I did in the evening before we'd go to bed and the kids would go to bed, we would have what she called a 5-minute pickup party. We would spend 5 minutes putting away toys, things we had out, putting dishes in the dishwasher. So the 5 minutes at the end of the day to get the house back in order seemed to work. And sometimes she would actually set an egg timer and make it a game for the kids to get everything put back together.
Okay, I'll give everyone just one more minute if you'd like to ask additional questions. I do want to say thank you so much to Dr. Moore for joining us this morning. Would it be all right for me to share your email in the chat box?
Oh, yes. And if anybody has other questions, needs resources, feel free to contact me.
Okay, I see a couple people typing. I see some applause. Dr. Moore, you're being applauded.
Thank you.
Yes, and I do see some thank yous coming through. We do appreciate you taking the time. Yes, so everyone is just applauding you. So thank you again. This recording will be available following the presentation. And Dr. Moore, thank you again.
You're welcome.